Okay, so you know how you shared that book, Live Before You Leave by A. Cordero?
Right, yeah.
Well, we wanted to like go through it and pull out the stuff that really hits you.
Yeah, like get to the heart of it.
The stuff that you can actually use and apply without, needing to read the whole thing.
Sort of like a cheat sheet to get those big aha moments without needing all the details.
In this book, it all comes down to the idea that life is, well, temporary,
Mm.
which I know can sound kind of heavy, but the book isn't really trying to be like depressing or anything.
Oh, no, no, not at all.
It's more about using that awareness of our limited time to inspire us to live more intentionally.
Exactly. Yeah, to really grab onto life and like squeeze every bit of experience out of it.
So what we're going to do in this deep dive is go through some of the central themes of Live Before You Leave.
Right, the stuff that can really make a difference in your life.
The stuff that can change how you see things and maybe help you feel more fulfilled.
That's the goal.
So let's start with chapter 1, the vanishing point. This chapter introduces the idea that, like, eventually everything we do, all our memories, all our achievements, even our worries, they'll all just fade away.
It's true.
It's kind of a stark thought, but the book actually presents this as something freeing.
Yeah.
So, like, how can the idea that everything ends be a good thing?
Well, think about it this way. If everything ultimately disappears, then all that pressure we put on ourselves, like the fear of screwing up or worrying about what people think, the need to be perfect all the time, it kind of loses its power.
Because in the grand scheme of things, it won't really matter.
Right, like those consequences don't seem so huge anymore when you realize it's all temporary anyway.
So you're saying that if nothing lasts forever, those little mistakes and stumbles, they're not like permanent scars.
Exactly.
It's more like the book is giving us permission to be a bit more daring, not so afraid to take risks.
It is. It's like a free pass to try things, even if you might mess up.
So what kinds of things is the book encouraging us to do?
Well, it talks about a lot of things, like taking chances that you've been putting off, speaking your mind, even when it's hard, embracing joy, and even a little silliness, and loving wholeheartedly.
Because those are the things that will truly matter.
Right. The book says that those things, the way you lived, the connections you made, the intensity of your emotions, those are the things that leave a real mark.
Even if the specific details, the everyday stuff eventually fades away.
Yeah.
So one key takeaway for our listeners is this. Knowing that everything is temporary can actually free you to take action,
That's it.
to do things without that constant worry of eternal consequences.
Right. Because in the end, those consequences might not matter as much as you think.
So think about it. Is there something you've been wanting to do, but you've been holding back because of fear?
Maybe this new perspective can give you that little push you need.
That's a really interesting way to look at things. Now let's move on to chapter 2, Then and Now.
Okay.
This chapter is all about looking back at how much you've grown. You know how far you've come.
Yeah, taking a moment to reflect on your own journey.
So the book suggests we think back maybe 5 years.
Yeah, and consider what your goals were back then, the things you were struggling with.
What were you worried about? What did you really want to achieve?
Right, and what you might find is that some of those things you really desired or worried about are now just a normal part of your life.
It's so easy to just keep looking ahead,
It is.
to always be focused on the next goal, the next achievement, without really acknowledging how far you've already come.
We're always striving for something more, and we forget to celebrate the wins we've already had.
So we kind of miss out on appreciating our own progress.
Yeah, it's like we're so focused on what's still missing that we become blind to what we've already accomplished.
So the book is saying that we need to stop and acknowledge those victories, big or small.
It is. It's about celebrating your past self and all the hard work you've put in.
And that's something we can do right now.
Absolutely. It's about shifting from that future-oriented mindset to an appreciation of where you are now.
So I think a good exercise for our listeners would be to take a minute after this and think of 3 things they've achieved.
3 things that their past selves would be proud of.
And this ties into the idea of pride, doesn't it?
It does.
The book suggests that pride isn't something we have to earn in the future, but something we can experience right now.
By recognizing how much we've grown and how much we've overcome.
So it's not about waiting for some future accomplishment to feel good about ourselves.
Not at all. It's about acknowledging our own journey and feeling proud of how far we've already come.
That's a great way to boost your confidence.
It really is.
Okay, so now let's move on to chapter 3, The Truth About Cycles.
Okay.
This chapter talks about the natural ups and downs of life. You know how things aren't always going to be smooth sailing.
Yeah, life is definitely not a straight line upwards.
There are going to be times of joy and times of difficulty, times when you feel on top of the world and times when you feel like you're at rock bottom.
Right? There are peaks and valleys. It's just the way it is.
But the book emphasizes that those low points, those difficult times, they're not necessarily failures.
Yeah, they're not something to be ashamed of or to avoid at all costs.
So how does the book reframe those tough times?
Well, it suggests that instead of seeing setbacks as like the end of the road or a sign that you're not good enough, they can actually be foundations for transformation.
So like those challenges, those difficult experiences, they can actually help us grow.
Yeah, they can force us to learn new things, develop new skills, and become more resilient.
Can you give an example of that?
Sure, like someone who loses their job and then ends up starting their own successful business.
So what initially seems like a failure can actually lead to something even better.
That's the idea.
And that ties into the idea that you're not defined by your worst moment.
Right. You're defined by how you handle that moment and how you come out on the other side.
You're defined by your resilience.
Exactly.
Now, of course, the book isn't saying we should just ignore pain or pretend everything's fine when it's not.
Of course not.
But it does offer a really important perspective. Even in the darkest times, healing is possible.
Even inevitable, really.
It might not happen overnight, but it's happening beneath the surface.
Right. It's like a seed being planted in the ground. It takes time to sprout and grow.
So the book encourages us to ride out those turbulent periods, those difficult times.
Knowing that they're a natural part of life and not something to be feared or avoided.
They're just part of the cycle.
Exactly.
Okay, so now let's move on to chapter 4, No Wrong Turns.
All right.
This chapter is all about making decisions, which can be really stressful.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
That fear of making the wrong choice can be paralyzing.
It can be, you don't want to mess up your life or make a choice you'll regret.
But the book presents a really interesting idea. It suggests that life isn't like a maze with only one right path.
It's more like a network of interconnected experiences.
So every decision we make, even if it doesn't lead to the exact outcome we expected, isn't necessarily a mistake.
No, not at all.
It just opens up some possibilities and closes others. It takes us down a different path.
Exactly. And each path has its own unique lessons and experiences to offer.
So even if we end up on a path we didn't intend to be on, we can still learn and grow from it.
Absolutely. That's the beauty of it. There's no one right way to live your life.
And the book emphasizes that no matter what decisions we make, there will be challenges.
There will be discomfort. There will be obstacles. It's just part of the human experience.
So it's not about trying to avoid challenges altogether.
No, it's about trusting your ability to adapt, to learn to overcome those challenges.
It's about having faith in the intentions of your past self, the you who made those decisions.
And knowing that you can always make new choices if you need to.
No moment is truly final until you stop moving forward.
That's a really powerful thought.
It is. It takes some of the pressure off those individual decisions, doesn't it?
It does. It helps you to see the bigger picture.
All right, so now let's delve into Chapter 5, Proof of Survival. This chapter is all about anxiety and how it often stems from uncertainty about the future.
Yeah, those nagging doubts about whether we can handle whatever's coming next.
Those what-if thoughts that can keep us up at night.
Exactly.
But the book gives us a really grounding exercise, looking back at all the obstacles we've already overcome.
Right, remembering those times when we thought we wouldn't make it through, but we did.
It's like creating a highlight reel of our own resilience.
That's a great way to put it.
So we need to consciously remind ourselves of all the tough times we've survived.
Yes, because it's easy to forget about those past victories when we're caught up in our current worries.
Our brains tend to focus on the negative.
They do. It's like a survival mechanism, but sometimes it works against us.
So by remembering our past resilience, we can build confidence in our ability to handle whatever comes our way in the future.
Exactly. We're not just hoping we can handle it. We have proof that we can.
And the book also suggests that the fear we might be feeling right now isn't necessarily a bad thing.
Yeah, it could actually be a sign of growth.
Like those growing pains you get when you're physically developing.
Right, it's that discomfort that comes with pushing your boundaries and expanding your comfort zone.
So instead of seeing fear as a warning sign, we can see it as a sign that we're on the right track.
Exactly. We're challenging ourselves. We're stepping outside of our comfort zone. And that's where growth happens.
And the book reframes that future-oriented fear by suggesting that our future selves will probably look back at these moments and be proud.
Proud of how we pushed through the fear and kept moving forward.
So it's like building confidence in our future selves as well.
Exactly. It's a way of saying, hey, future me, I got your back. You can handle this.
Now let's talk about Chapter 6, Reject Average.
Okay.
This chapter feels like a call to action, a reminder to embrace our individuality.
It is. It's about rejecting the pressure to conform, to fit into some predefined mold of what's normal.
Because that pressure to be normal, it often comes from external expectations, not our own desires.
Right? It's society telling us how we should be, how we should act, what we should achieve.
And the book argues that living a truly authentic life means going against the grain sometimes.
It means doing things your own way, even if it's unconventional, or even if it makes some people uncomfortable.
So it might mean facing some setbacks or misunderstandings.
It might, but the book contrasts that temporary discomfort with the potential for a much deeper regret.
The regret of not having lived in accordance with your true self.
Exactly. You don't want to reach the end of your life and wonder, what if I had just been myself?
So it's like a trade-off between the perceived safety of fitting in and the potential fulfillment of embracing your uniqueness.
Right. It's about choosing to live a life that feels true to you, even if it means standing out from the crowd.
Okay, so Chapter 7, The Price of Dreams, builds on this idea by talking about the challenges that come with pursuing anything meaningful.
Right, because let's be real, achieving big things, building deep connections, growing as a person, it's not always easy.
It takes effort, it takes courage, it takes vulnerability.
Yeah, and sometimes it means facing discomfort and even pain.
But the book reframes that discomfort in a really interesting way.
Instead of seeing it as a reason to give up, it suggests that those feelings of struggle and frustration can actually be signs that you're on the right path.
They're signs that you're pushing your boundaries, that you're evolving.
It's like working out your muscles. The more you push yourself, the stronger you get.
So that feeling of difficulty isn't necessarily a sign to turn back.
No, it could actually be evidence that you're growing, that you're making progress.
And the book points out that most people tend to stop when things get tough.
They give up, they settle for mediocrity because it's easier than pushing through the discomfort.
But those who persevere, those who keep going, even when it's hard, are the ones who often achieve the most.
They're the ones who reach their full potential.
That's a really inspiring message.
It's a reminder that growth doesn't always feel good, but it's always worth it.
Okay, so let's move on to Chapter 8, The Quiet Observers. This chapter focuses on the importance of emotional intelligence.
Which is something that's often overlooked, but incredibly valuable.
So the book says that there are different ways of perceiving and understanding the world.
Right. Some people are very focused on words, on explicit communication, on what's being said out loud.
But others are more attuned to the unspoken cues, to the underlying emotions.
Yeah, they're paying attention to the tone of voice, the body language,
Yeah.
the subtle shifts in energy.
They're reading between the lines.
Exactly. And these people, the book calls them quiet observers, are often very emotionally intelligent.
So they can sense things that other people might miss.
Right. They're picking up on those subtle signals that reveal what's really going on beneath the surface.
And in a world that's so focused on being heard, on expressing yourself, the book highlights the value of truly listening.
Of paying attention not just to the words, but to the person behind the words.
To their emotions, to their unspoken needs.
Exactly. And that ability to listen deeply, to connect with people on an emotional level is so powerful.
It's the foundation of strong relationships.
It allows you to build trust, intimacy, and understanding.
Okay, now Chapter 9, Your Timeline, addresses something I think we all struggle with. Comparing our lives to others.
Oh yeah, the comparison trap.
It's so easy to look at other people's successes, their achievements, their milestones, and feel like we're falling behind.
Especially in the age of social media where everyone's always showcasing their best selves.
It can make you feel like you're not doing enough or that you're not on the right track.
Right, like there's some imaginary timeline that we're all supposed to be following, and if we're not hitting those milestones at the same time as everyone else, then we're somehow failing.
But the book reminds us that there is no universal timeline.
No, there isn't. Everyone's journey is unique with its own rhythm and its own timing.
So comparing ourselves to others is ultimately pointless.
It is. It's like comparing apples to oranges. They're both fruits, but they're completely different.
So we need to release those comparisons and focus on our own individual journey.
Right, on our own process of growth and becoming.
And trust that we're exactly where we're supposed to be.
Exactly.
That's a really liberating thought.
It is. It frees you from the pressure of trying to keep up with everyone else.
Now let's talk about Chapter 10, Memento Mori.
Okay.
This chapter takes us back to the concept we touched on at the very beginning, the certainty of our own mortality.
Yeah. The fact that our time here is limited.
And as we discussed before, the book doesn't present this idea to scare us.
No, it's not about dwelling on death or becoming morbid.
It's about using the awareness of our mortality as a catalyst for living more fully and more presently.
To appreciate every moment and to make the most of the time we have.
So the book highlights the fact that everything we tend to hold on to so tightly, our time, our possessions, our relationships, it's all finite.
It is. It's all going to end eventually.
So why hold back? Why not express ourselves fully?
Right. Why not tell the people we love how much they mean to us?
Why not pursue our passions and live a life that feels truly meaningful?
Because when our time does come, what will matter most is how we lived, not what we accumulated or achieved.
It's about the quality of our experiences, not the quantity of our possessions.
Exactly.
And the book reminds us that death is inevitable.
It is. It's the one thing we all have in common.
So instead of fearing it, we can use that awareness to motivate us to live more intentionally.
To make the most of every day and to create a life that we're proud of.
That's a really powerful way to reframe the concept of death.
It is. It's about shifting from fear to gratitude, from anxiety to appreciation.
Okay, so now let's talk about Chapter 11, the versions of you.
All right.
This chapter explores the idea that we're not just one singular self.
Right. We're not a static, unchanging entity.
We're actually a collection of different facets that emerge depending on who we're with and what situation we're in.
Yeah, we present different versions of ourselves to different people.
So, like, the way we act with our friends is probably different from the way we act with our boss.
Exactly. And the way we are with our family is different from the way we are with our romantic partner.
And that's not necessarily a bad thing.
No, it's just part of being human. It's how we adapt to different social contexts.
And the book actually presents this as something positive.
It highlights our adaptability,
Yeah.
our flexibility, our ability to connect with people in different ways.
So we have this diverse impact on others, often without even realizing it.
Right. You might be a source of strength for one person, a shoulder to cry on for another, a source of inspiration for someone else.
And all those interactions, all those little moments, they add up to something bigger.
They do. They create a ripple effect in the world around us.
So even if we don't always see the impact we're having, it's still there.
It is. We're all connected in ways we might not even be aware of.
Now, finally, we come to Chapter 12, The Last Day.
Okay.
This chapter asks a very direct and impactful question. If today were your last day, what would you choose to do differently?
It's a question that really makes you stop and think.
It cuts through all the distractions and forces you to confront your priorities.
Yeah. What truly matters to you? What do you want to spend your precious time on?
And the book emphasizes that this awareness of our mortality isn't meant to create panic or anxiety.
No, it's meant to create a sense of urgency.
An urgency to be present, to make the most of this moment, to live fully and without reservation.
Because the future is uncertain and the past is gone. All we really have is now.
So the book encourages us to be present, to connect with the people we love, to express ourselves authentically, to pursue our passions.
To live a life that feels meaningful and fulfilling.
Because one day that question, what would you do differently, won't be hypothetical.
It will be a reality.
So the message is clear. Live every day as if it were your last.
Embrace the present moment and make the most of the time you have.
That's a powerful way to end the book.
It leaves you with a sense of purpose and a renewed appreciation for life.
So to sum up, Live Before You Leave offers a really compelling framework for living a more intentional and fulfilling life.
It encourages us to appreciate the present, to embrace challenges, to connect with others on a deeper level, and to live in alignment with our true selves.
And on that note, I want to leave our listeners with a question. What's one thing you've been putting off for someday that you could actually start doing today?
What small step can you take right now to make that someday dream a reality?
Thank you for sharing this book with us. It's been a really thought-provoking journey.
It has, and we hope this deep dive has given our listeners some valuable insights to take away.
We'll see you next time on The Deep Dive.
See you then.